It has been a long time, but welcome back to another episode of the Robbie Rob Show. We're now going into part 2 of the Joseph Smith saga. So just to give you a recap in case it has been a long time and you forgot what we were talking about, let me give you a recap of what happened. Robbie, what happened?
Joseph wrote a book.
Then what?
People got mad.
Then what?
Joseph moved out west.
Then what?
Started another bank.
Then what? What?
Bank went flop.
What happened?
People got mad.
And now on to part 2. It has been a long time, but guys, I am back and welcome to the new episode of the Robbie Rob Show. I am Robbie Robinson. It has been some time, and I'm glad that you guys are back watching and waiting for another channel or another episode. So I know a lot of you have been asking, where have you been? It has been over 4 months, and I will give you a legit reason. I am now an English high school teacher. So yes, I have students, I grade papers, I set up conferences, I have meetings, I meet with staff and faculty and students and administration. And with that, I honestly just did not have the time enough to really do this. I wanted to do this, and I just figured I had to take the time out to really do what I want to do, which is make sure that you guys are up to date with what's going on. First and foremost, that song you hear, as I always give credit, that is to Minister Anthony Junebug Turner, Nobody But God, part of the Pentecostal Takeover Choir. That is his choir. He is the founder. He has given me permission to use that song. So at the end of this video, as I always do, I will make sure that I will put a Cash App on the bottom of the screen and also on the description below, so that you can go ahead and just be a blessing to him. I'll also put my Cash App as well towards the end. So now let's get on to the meat of the matter. When we last left off, Prophet Joseph Smith, the man who would be the founder of the Latter-day Saints movement, he is now on the move. He is now moved to Missouri. He comes from New York. He finds inspiration of God. And so now we're looking at part 2. By this point, remember, he had already flopped the bank. Things are not looking too good, so we're going to see how things turn around for him. Here we go. By January of 1837, Smith and the elders of the church decided to create a joint stock company, which, for those of you who don't know, is a business in which shares of the company's stock can be bought and sold by shareholders, and shareholders are able to transfer their shares to each other without any effects to the existence of the company. He called it the Kirtland Safety Society Anti-Banking Company, to act as a kind of quasi-bank. Smith encouraged all of the Latter-day Saints to invest in these banknotes to increase the profitability of the stock company. He himself invested heavily in them. Now, how long did you think the bank lasted? If you said 10 years, you're being way too generous. If you said 1 year, that's still too much. Not 6 months, not 3 months, not 2 months, but only 1 month. That's right. In 30 days, the bank failed, and the debt collectors came a-knocking. Smith was held totally responsible for the failure of the bank, and many of the members, some of his closest advisors, simply had enough of it and left the Latter-day Saints movement. I'll tell you someone else who was fed up with it. Johnny Law. A warrant was issued on a charge of him for banking fraud, but before the long arm of the law could get to him, he and his old buddy Sidney Rigdon fled town to Jackson County, Missouri. When, in 1838, Smith arrived in Jackson County, he established the town of Far West as the new Zion. By this point, the church was officially named the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the name that the major denomination is known as today. And wouldn't you know that the debt-riddled, mob-chased visionary leader would construct yet another temple. After some time, thousands of LDS followers moved from Kirtland to Far West, but all was not well within the Latter-day Saints Church. During this time, some of the biggest names of the Latter-day Saints Church were kicked out, such as John and David Whitmere, W. Phelps, and Oliver Cowdery, Joseph Smith's personal scribe. Smith gave his stamp of approval and even went as far as calling them the dissenters. As if things were already tough enough, it seemed that wherever Smith went, angry mobs followed. Well, Smith had enough. He realized that in order to be safe, he would need a counterforce to all of these Mormon haters. A man by the name of Samson Avard, who was a recent LDS convert, formed the Danites, a group with one goal: intimidate Mormon haters, dissenters, and public opponents. Whether or not Smith was aware of all that was going on is unknown. What is known is that not only did it not bother him, he clearly was and openly was approved to it. All it took was one match to light the flame, and that flame came from a sermon from Sidney Rigdon. In his sermon, he mentioned that Mormon haters had no place within the community. That's all it took, and all of the opposers were forced out of the county. But it didn't stop there. At a 4th of July celebration, Rigdon would go on to say that the Mormon community would no longer tolerate any sort of Mormon hate, not just from Jackson County, but anyone in general. Rigdon pretty much told the haters, if you feel froggy, jump, and we will jump back. Well, the non-Mormons saw this as a threat and decided to trash talk them in the newspapers. 1838 was also the year of the Mormon War. Non-Mormons tried to prevent Mormons from voting in an election. The non-Mormons must have felt like they were in the Crusades because they pillaged and burned down the Mormon farms. The Danites, the Mormon militia, returned the favor, even going as far as accidentally attacking the state militia of Missouri, which angered the governor of the state at the time, Lilburn Boggs, who declared that the Mormons now must go. They didn't have to go home, but they definitely had to get up out of there. The war lasted from August 6, 1838 to October 31, 1838, when the Latter-day Saints surrendered and forfeited their property. But the crown jewel was that non-Mormons wanted was indeed the leader himself, Prophet Joseph Smith. He was brought to court, accused of treason, and was supposed to be sentenced to death. However, a man by the name of Alexander Donovan would not carry out the order. As such, Smith was sent to a state court. There's an old adage that is said in the South, the chickens have come home to roost. For all you non-Southerners, that simply means that all the bad things that you have done will come back to haunt you. In this case, all of the former allies of Joseph Smith, who he has managed to anger in one form or another, came to the court hearing in order to testify against Joseph Smith. Along with Sidney Rigdon, Smith and 5 others were transferred to the Liberty Jail in Liberty, Missouri. Whenever a star dims, another one shines bright. While Smith was in prison, a man by the name of Brigham Young, who would later become the leader of the Latter-day Saints Church, served as the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, and became an effective and prominent leader. Now, if you have been keeping up, you will notice a trend. Joseph Smith has been the Teflon Don of this entire story. Each time he gets close to being captured by some unruly group, he manages to escape.
You've got to be quicker than that.
Starting from around 1827, he leaves from Palmyra, New York to Oakland, Pennsylvania to escape a group of people looking to find his golden plates. Also around that time, he fled to escape an angry mob who didn't like this Book of Mormon that he created. He fled a mob in 1832 over Missouri and Ohio, residents over Smith's political power of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And in 1838, he fled again after the Kirtland Safety Society anti-banking company flopped. Probably flopped because that's a long name for a banking company. Well, like Mario and Luigi, who touched the green mushroom, Joseph Smith had another life and managed to escape custody from his hearing on April 6, 1839. His new destination, Nauvoo, Illinois. Illinois was sympathetic to the Mormon refugees. Joseph Smith was able to purchase some land in Commerce, Illinois, and then went on a campaign that would portray the Latter-day Saints Church as oppressed, minoritized, and misunderstood. He went so far as to petition and beg the federal government for reparations. The summer of 1839 was not too kind, as there was a malaria outbreak taking place.
And beans and disease to you.
Nevertheless, Smith sent Brigham Young, along with other apostles of the Quorum of the 12, to go to Europe and convert others to the Latter-day Saints faith. At home, Smith did attract some pretty well-known and wealthy people to the Mormon cause. One such person was a man by the name of John C. Bennett, who used some connections to get the Illinois legislature to design and create a charter for the city, making it autonomous, creating a university, and gave Smith clemency, which meant he wouldn't be extradited back to Missouri. But that's not all. The charter also authorized the Nauvoo militia and was only limited by state and federal constitutions. Smith became its lieutenant general and Bennett became its major general, which, by the way, there is no research that would indicate that Smith had any military training. The buddy system created by Smith and Bennett also made Bennett the assistant president of the LDS Church, and Bennett was elected as the first mayor of Nauvoo. Now, there was one thing that the Latter-day Saints Church was known for. It was polygamy. Yes, we're going to go there. And this is about the time that it started. In 1841, Smith secretly revealed to only the closest of his confidants the doctrine of plural marriage, while publicly he would deny it. Mayor Bennett used it as an excuse to seduce and bed multiple women, whether they were already married or not. However, rumors began to circulate about the men of the LDS Church and how they would have affairs, then use plural marriage as an excuse. This forced Smith to ask for Bennett's resignation as mayor of Nauvoo. This didn't sit too well with Bennett, so Bennett did a tell-all exposure to all of the loose-living escapades that were going on concerning Prophet Joseph Smith. But that didn't stop Smith from continuing to teach. Also around this time, he introduced the doctrine of the baptism of the dead, which is still taught today in the Latter-day Saints Church. By 1841, the Nauvoo Temple was being constructed, and by 1842, Smith revised an endowment of the Holy Spirit, which resembled rites of Freemasonry. You see, Smith became a Freemason by March 15, 1842, and here's an official log from the actual journal of Joseph Smith himself, which this can be found on the website www.josephsmithpapers.org. It reads as, quote, 15 March 1842, Tuesday 15 officiated as Grand Chaplain at the installation of the Nauvoo Lodge of Freemasons on at the Grove, near the temple. Grand Master Abraham Jonas being present, a large number of people assembled on the occasion. The day was exceedingly fine. All things were done in order, and universal satisfaction manifested. Admitted a member of the lodge in the evening. So we know that any symbolism that would resemble Freemasonry would be obvious. Also, as I also want to point out, this endowment was only for men, initiated through being a part of a group called the Anointed Quorum. The women were part of the Relief Society that Smith created, which served as a sorority of types. These women were endowed with the belief that they would receive the keys of the kingdom, which for those who don't know is a concept of eternal church authority. Please note that women do not hold positions of leadership in the Latter-day Saints Church. By the summer of the same year, Smith revealed that the millennial kingdom of God would eventually establish a form of theocratic rule over all of the earth. Just like everyone else who turned against the Mormons, the same thing happened in mid-1842. The Missouri governor at that time, Lilburn Boggs, was shot and wounded, and rumors circulated that it was the Mormons' fault. Through circumstantial evidence, Boggs ordered Smith to be extradited to Missouri, which Smith knew would mean the end of his life. So Smith went into hiding for 5 months. While the USDA of Illinois reminded the court, and by the USDA I'm referring to the United States District Attorney for Illinois, even though he reminded that Joseph Smith could not be extradited back to Missouri from the charter that was drawn, Illinois Governor Thomas Ford, who would later succeed Lilburn Boggs, brought up an old charge of treason. As Smith was about to be led across state lines back to Missouri, a party of Mormons came and blocked the passage.
You shall not pass!
By December of 1843, Smith made a petition to the United States Congress to make Nauvoo an independent territory, free from the bounds of federal and state law. as well as the right to call out federal troops in its defense. Think the Swiss Guard who guard the Pope, who is the head of the government of Vatican City. He even demanded that the presidential candidates would tell him what they would do to protect Mormons. He was met with either crickets or negative responses. So he did what any major religious leader who feels they're called by God to save the world would do: run for president. By March, Smith created the Council of 50, which had the authority to decide which national or state laws Mormons would obey and which they would not. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is illegal by federal law. The council would decide for a new location where they could live beyond government control. If you think his life was controversial, boy, wait until I go into his death. There was some dissension from William Law and Robert Foster, who both disagreed over how Smith was managing Nauvoo's economy. Also, they were mad at Smith for trying to marry their own wives. More on his marriages later. Smith became paranoid that Law and Foster were plotting to kill him and excommunicated them from the Latter-day Saints Church on April 18, 1844. These two, along with other dissents, would form the true Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the following month, in May, the city of Carthage indicted Smith on charges of perjury and polygamy. On June 7th, a paper called the Nauvoo Expositor called out Joseph Smith for being a leader of a religion that believed in many gods, attacked Smith's use of polygamy as a heresy, and that Smith was using religion as an excuse to lure women. Smith was absolutely irate, and the Nauvoo City Council called upon the Nauvoo Legion to destroy the press, although ultimately that might have caused more harm than good. By destroying the press, Thomas C. Sharp, the editor of the Warsaw Signal and a longtime enemy and critic of Joseph Smith, called for a call to arms. Smith then mobilized the Nauvoo Legion and declared martial law. The officials of Carthage responded by getting their own militia, and Governor Thomas Ford threatened to get a larger militia unless Smith and the Nauvoo Legion stood down and surrendered. Smith and his brother Hiram rode to Carthage to stand trial for inciting a riot, which was then upgraded to treason to prevent them from posting bail. On June 27, 1844, an armed mob stormed the jail. Now, this is according to Mormon tradition. There is one account of Joseph Smith's death. Here's the first account. Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith, along with Cyrus Wheelock, were only armed with their hands and their sticks, possibly even Joseph Smith's walking cane. Hiram Smith was shot near the left of his nose. Hiram fell down to the floor and exclaimed, "I am a dead man," before he died. Joseph kneeled down to his brother and said, "Oh, dear brother Hiram." It is from there that he sprang to the window of his jail cell before he was shot 3 times, twice in the back and one in the chest. He fell out the window crying, "Oh Lord, my God," before succumbing to his wounds. Now, there is a second account, a little less more lore-like. Sounds a little bit more graphic as well. This is how the other story goes. The other story goes like this. Cyrus Wheelock visited Joseph Smith and hid a pepper box pistol in his overcoat, which apparently went unnoticed. The Smith brothers, along with Wheelock, defended themselves with the pistols while trying to keep the mob from breaking into the jail. Hiram was shot in the face, saying, "I am a dead man," which Joseph exclaimed, "Oh dear brother Hiram." Joseph took the pepper box pistol and shot at the mob, wounding 3 before running out of bullets. From there, he sprang to the window. It is believed that he raised his hand in the Freemason sign of distress and yelled, "Oh Lord, my God, is there a help for the widow's son?" before he is shot 3 times. Then he falls on his left side and is shot up to 5 more times, either while falling down or shortly after his fall. The Smith brothers were buried in the Smith family cemetery in Nauvoo, Illinois, which has become one of the many sites of interest for members of the Latter-day Saints Church. Joseph Smith was only 39 years old. So this is something of a reenactment of what will probably happen around the death of Prophet Joseph Smith. So let's see if we can set the atmosphere first. First, we're going to have to change these style of clothes. So you know how I do. Let's do it like this. Alright. May not exactly be something what he would look like, but this is kind of an idea of what they would do back in the day. We are in the frontier, so that's why you hear the dog barking. Let's see. He had a stick, a walking cane. So let's see. I need something like a walking cane here. Alright. This'll do. Doesn't have to be a regular walking cane. It's my interpretation, right? Okay. One more thing needs to be done. Walking cane, suit, tie, something that he would probably wear during that time. Let's make the season, let's get that kind of old look. Alright, so let's see, we got everything here. So we're going to do scenario 1. This is what is generally oftentimes accepted by the Latter-day Saints as the truth about what happened. So let's take a look.
Hold them off, brother. They can't take us for long. Hold off, my brother. Hang firm. Hang. Brother. Oh, Lord. No, not Hiram. Oh, I must escape. Back. There's a window. There's a window. Hold firm! Hold firm! They can't take us all! Quickly, shoot the main one! Shoot the main... Hiram! Hiram! Oh no, not Hiram. There's an escape route. Hang tight! Oh Lord, my God! Is there not any help for the widow?
Already dead.
I am shot. This really sucks. Now comes the age-old question. How many wives did Joseph Smith have? Did he sleep with any of them? What about children? And what did his wife feel? Well, there was his legal wife, Emma Hale Smith. Joseph Smith went so far as to say publicly that Emma was his only wife, and that she was the only woman to bear his children. After Smith's death, Emma Smith would not offer any confession statement or any interview concerning her marriage to Prophet Smith. In the interest of time, there is a website that talks about whether or not Prophet Smith did have sexual intercourse with his many wives. That website is www.mrm.org. Also, it is interesting to note that while he did engage in polygamous marriages, many of his wives also engaged in polyandrous marriages, as many of them were legally married to their first husbands. I would also like to note that rigorous research was done with the marriages, and what is concluded is that the marriage to Emma Hale Smith is the only one that is legally recognized. Without further ado, here are the many wives of Prophet Joseph Smith. I will provide the name, how old the wife was at the time of their marriage, how old Smith was at the time of their marriage, and whether or not any of them were already married or they were concurrently married at the time of their sealing to Prophet Joseph Smith. Fanny Alger, who was married between 1833 and 1837. She was between 16 and 20 years old. Smith was between 28 and 32 years old. She was single. Lucinda Pendleton Morgan Harris, who was married between 1838 and 1842. She was between 37 years old and 40 years old. Smith was between 33 and 37. She was concurrently married to George Washington Harris at the time. Louisa Beeman was married on April 5, 1841, and she was 26. He was 36. She was single. It is also interesting to note that after Smith's death, she would later marry Smith's successor, Brigham Young, as wife number 9 and had five children together with Brigham Young. Zena Diantha Huntington Jacobs was married on October 7, 1841, at the age of 20. According to the book In Sacred Loneliness, The Plural Wives of Joseph Smith, written by Todd Compton, not only was she concurrently married to Henry Bailey Jacobs, but Jacobs totally agreed with the marriage and is quoted saying, "Whatever the prophet did was right, without making the wisdom of God's authorities bend to the reasoning of any man." Smith was 36 and was also married to Louisa Beeman, and like Beeman, Zena Jacobs would later marry Brigham Young. Prescindia Lathrop Huntington Bull, which is Zena's sister, was married to Smith on December 11, 1841, at the age of 31. She was also polyandrously married and would later marry Heber C. Kimball, which is one of the Quorum of the 12 at that time. Agnes Moulton Coolbrith, the widow of Smith's younger brother, Don Carlos Smith. They were married on January 6, 1842. She was 33. Joseph Smith was 37. Sylvia Porter Lyon was married on February 8, 1842. She was 23. He was 37. She was concurrently married at the time of her marriage to Smith. She was concurrently married at the time of her marriage to Smith. So she was married to someone else while she was married to Prophet Smith. She would confess before her death that her daughter was fathered by Smith, although DNA testing would prove otherwise. This would suggest, however, not prove, that Smith did engage in intercourse with her. Mary Elizabeth Rollins Lightner was married on January 17, 1842. She was 23. He was 37. She was married to Adam Lightner and was pregnant with her third child at the time of her sealing to Smith. Patty Bartlett Sessions, the mother of wife number 7, Sylvia Porter Lyon, was married on March 9, 1842. She was 47. He was 37. Also, Sylvia was present at her mother's marriage to her husband. Yeah, it sounds just as weird as it sounds. Marinda Nancy Johnson Hyde was married on April of 1842. She was 27. He was 37. She was concurrently married to Orson Hyde. Elizabeth Davis Brackenbury Durfee was married sometime after 1842. She was 50. He was 37. She too was also concurrently married at the time, although there is no real true evidence of her sealing to Prophet Smith. Sarah Marietta Kingsley Howe Cleveland was married before June 29, 1842. She was 52. He was 37. While she was married, there is no strong evidence to support her sealing to Smith. Delsina Johnson Sherman was married before July of 1842. Both were 37 years old. She was a widow prior to her marriage of the late Lyman R. Sherman. Eliza Roxy Snow was married on June 29, 1842. Both here were 37 years old. She was the sister of Lorenzo Snow, who would later become the 5th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She would also marry Brigham Young upon the death of Prophet Smith. Sarah Ann Whitney was married on July 27, 1842. She was 17. He was 37. Single at the time, this marriage was consented by her marriage in the hope of creating a dynastic link between the Smith and Whitney families. She would later marry twice. Her first husband, Joseph C. Kingsbury, was aware of the marriage of her and Prophet Smith and approved it. She would later marry Heber C. Kimball. Martha McBride Knight was married on August of 1842. Both were 37 years old. She was the widow of Vincent Knight, who would later, and she herself would be later sealed to Heber C. Kimball. Sarah Babson was married in 1842. Her age is unknown, and her marital status prior to marrying Prophet Smith is unknown. Ruth D. Vos Sayers was married in 1843. She was 34. He was 38. She was also concurrently married at the time. Flora Ann Woodworth was married on 1843. She was 16. He was 38. She was single. Emily Dow Partridge was married on March 4th, 1843. She was 19. He was 38. Single at the time, she would later marry Brigham Young. Eliza Maria Partridge, Emily's sister, was married 4 days later.
She was 22 years old. Almira Woodward Johnson was married on August of 1843. She was 30, he was 37, single at the time of their marriage. Lucy Walker was married on May 1st, 1843. She was 17, he was 38. She provided proof of their marriage through a letter she wrote. At the time of her marriage, she was single. Sarah Lawrence was married on May of 1843. She too was 17, single at the time of marriage. Maria Lawrence, Sarah's sister, married around the same time. She was 19 and would later marry Brigham Young as his 16th wife. Helen Mar Kimball, the daughter of Herbert C. Kimball, was married on May of 1843. She was only 14 at the time. He was 38. She was convinced by the elder Kimball to marry Smith to gain eternal life and salvation. Hannah Ely was married in 1843. Little is known about her. Elvira Annie Cowles Holmes was married on June 1st, 1843. She was 29 years old and concurrently married. Rhoda Richards was married on June 12, 1843. She was 58. He was 38. She is not only the first cousin of Brigham Young, but would later marry him after Smith's death. Desdemona Wadsworth Fulmer was married on July of 1843. She was 32 and single at the time. Olive Gray Frost was married possibly around September of 1843. She was 37 and single and would later become the wife number 18 for Brigham Young. Mary Ann Frost Pratt was married in the summer of 1843. She was 34 and concurrently married to Marley P. Pratt. She is Olive's sister. Melissa Lott was married on July 20th, 1843 at the age of 19. Nancy Maria Winchester was married between 1842 and 1843. She was only 14. Fannie Murray was married on November 2nd, 1843 at the age of 56. She was concurrently married to Roswell Murray. Now, from this point forward, Mary Houston, Sarah Scott, Olive Andrews, Jane Tippett, Sophia Sanborn, Phoebe Woodsworth, Vienna Jacques, Clarissa Hancock, Sally Ann Fuller, Miss Blossom, Mary Houston, Cordelia Callista Morley, Nancy Maria Smith, Jane Tibbetts, not Tippett, and Sophia Woodman would be wives 36 through 50. They're all grouped together because little is known about any of these women, their ages, or the marital status to Smith. Now comes another question. Did Joseph Smith father any children outside of those with Emma Smith? Well, 9 children went through DNA testing to prove fatherhood. Of those 9, 7 came back negative.
You are not.
Who were unknown as the babies died during infancy and their remains are unknown. And there you go. That is as much as I could cover about Prophet Joseph Smith. He is one of the most researched historical figures in Christianity. A lot of his teachings. I mean, many people still follow his teachings. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is one of the largest denominations in the United States. And so I will make sure I will post the links to some of those websites that I have in the description page. I'll make sure to post the ISBN number, or IBSN, the IBSN number for the book that I will quote it from there. Also, I will make sure you have to go right there on the bottom, okay? In the bottom of the screen is Minister Anthony Junebug Turner's cash tag. It is PTMinistries. He is the person who is singing Nobody But God. That's our intro for this video, our intro for this entire show. And I love doing what I love to do because I'm a thirst knowledge. So if you feel like the Lord has led you to bless me financially, you can find me at #RevRobbieRob. Okay, that is #RevRobbieRob. The next project is going to take a little while. I'll see what I can do, but it will be on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Okay, we'll be looking at some of his background. Of course, we did a lot of it on this founder, but their beliefs, their practices, some of the things that, their attire, what they're known for, just the way of worship, their ideologies. Okay, we're going to go through all of that, and I will make sure to get out as soon as I can. Okay, but
Thank you all for being part of the show. I shall be back soon and very soon. But until then,